I presume you're here in order to learn of Magecraft. I'll have you know, there's no room for the weak-willed in this course, and despite your best efforts, the sorcery of our time is but a fraction of what it once was in the Age of Gods. Much of the craft is established through pedigree, and the culture of mages is riddled with deception and moral depravity. That said, if you insist, I shall do my best to educate you in this miserable, yet fascinating world. In our previous lesson, I covered the ways in which mages rank and classify mystery. For the most part, these rankings pertain to the parameters and abilities of heroic spirits. Keeping to the same topic, I would like to focus this lesson on another aspect of heroic spirits, that being the various catalysts used to summon them. In lieu of a generalized process, we will go over plenty of examples. Consider it more of a history lesson than a practical one. Of course, a comprehensive understanding of myths and legends will always aid in Magecraft, even if only tangentially. The process of summoning a heroic spirit is a masterful achievement of modern Magecraft on its own. Gaining control over which servant you summon is an even greater feat. By default, most summoning rituals will pair a master with a servant that best matches their personality and likeness. Horrible, twisted masters will likely summon equally nightmarish servants, and vice versa. This by itself is a perfectly functional system, but its main flaw is that it in no way guarantees a strong servant. As such, potential masters desire a means by which they can guarantee a specific summon. Enter catalysts, symbols and holy relics recovered throughout history. They are, quite literally, relics of the past, inextricably linked to specific legends. These can be weapons, armor, treasured items, or even preserved fragments of bone or genetic material. Even outside the Holy Grail Wars, catalysts are valuable for their mystery alone. The Mages Association, for instance, has been collecting potential catalysts for centuries. When the Yggdrasilania clan chose to rebel against the Association, they only did so after amassing their own stockpile of catalysts. Let us begin by discussing the most versatile catalyst, the Round Table. Artoria Pendragon once commissioned the Round Table to serve as a means of sitting with her fellow knights without a distinguished hierarchy. Rather than lord and subject, they were all heroes, and the table represented their bond. Various fragments of the Round Table have survived to the modern era, each one being capable of summoning one of the knights. While they seem like ordinary pieces of finished wood, they emit heat when touched. Given that all the knights in Arthur's court are strong, capable fighters, these shards sell for tremendous prices. Their allure has provoked merchants to sell counterfeit shards. The mage Kairi Shishigo used an authentic piece to summon Mordred, the Knight of Rebellion, only for her to destroy it in disgust. Sir Galahad's shield, Lord Camelot, is made from parts of the Round Table and represents a place where heroes assemble. In that regard, it is the ultimate catalyst, allowing the Chaldea security organization to summon virtually any servant recorded in their database. It is the pinnacle of summoning, a perfected state of the ritual. That said, it is one of a kind, still justifying the need for most masters to obtain their own unique catalysts. King Arthur herself cannot be summoned from a shard of the Round Table. Rather, she requires a more powerful catalyst, one that is linked exclusively to her. This is Avalon, the underappreciated scabbard of Excalibur. During her life, Artoria was rendered nearly invincible with Avalon in her possession, but before her death at the Battle of Camlon, her sheath was stolen from her. In the modern era, it was discovered and excavated from Cornwall for the Ainsburn family to use in their Fourth Holy Grail War. For that same war, Cainith El Malloy Archibald ordered a relic to be delivered from Macedonia. It was a piece of Iskandar's mantle, or cape. In the past, Iskandar's nameless body double, sometimes mistaken for Hephaestion, wore her king's cape, and after a part of it was severed by a sword in battle, that piece was entrusted to her. As a result, the mantle is capable of summoning not just Iskandar himself, but also his body double as a Faker-class servant. Back when the Ainsburn family sought to win the Grail by violating the war's rules, they summoned an Avenger servant, Angra Mainyu, an embodiment of all the world's evils. He is a Zoroastrian figure, an ordinary man forced to bear the burden of evil to liberate his fellow villagers. Those same villagers inscribed a text, Avesta, which detailed the laws of order. Cruelly, the man who became Angermainu did not have his name included in Avesta, ironically freeing him from that order. The book itself is used when summoning him, and his noble phantasm is an imitation of it. The Greek hero Jason, along with his famed Argonauts, which include Asclepius, Atalante, and Heracles, can be summoned via their legendary ship, the Argo. Like the Round Table, pieces of the Argo can be found scattered across the globe. While Medea has a profound connection to the Argo, she can also be summoned through texts from her kingdom of Colchis. For the Fifth Grail War in Fuyuki, the mage Atram Galiasta summoned her with the charred remains of the Golden Fleece. This fleece was a gift to Medea's father, a coat made from the winged ram Chrysomalos. Jason came to Colchis looking to steal it, and after being cursed into loving him, Medea helped him escape with it in tow. Presumably, the Golden Fleece was guarded by a dragon, leading many to believe that possessing it would allow them to summon a dragon. In truth, however, even if one were to summon a dragon, they would also require the means to control it. As such, not even Medea herself uses it for that purpose. Heracles, too, can be summoned from the Argo, but for the Fifth Grail War, the Ainsburns instead used a different catalyst. One of the hero's weapons, a nameless axe sword, was carved from an ancient temple and exists in the modern era for mages to uncover. Yet again, the renowned teacher Cheiron shares a connection to the Argo, but more unique to him is the legend of his death. Heracles accidentally shot Cheiron with an arrow dipped in a hydra's venom. Despite being immortal, the venom caused Cheiron so much pain that he relinquished his divinity in order to die without suffering. This very arrow, stained by Cheiron's blood, can be used to summon him. The Celtic hero Cuchulainn, Ireland's child of light, once wore a pair of silver earrings, each engraved with original runes. The mage Bazette Fraga Micremitz inherited these earrings, and while she wore them, they also served as her catalyst in summoning Cuchulainn for the Fifth Grail War. As a heroic spirit, he retains the earrings he wore in life, essentially creating a duplicate. The same phenomenon occurs with heroic spirit Emiya, the servant form of Shiro Emiya. His master, Rin Tosaka, inherited a unique memento from her late father. It was a one-of-a-kind jewel pendant containing 10 years' worth of Rin's mana. This tremendous power was used to revive Shiro from the brink of death. After waking up from his injuries, Shiro found this pendant and kept it close until his dying day. When his legend was recorded into the Throne of Heroes, Rin became capable of summoning him using her version of the pendant as a catalyst. When this happened, Emiya arrived possessing his own version of it. Along with the pendant, Rin also inherited the catalyst her father used in the previous Grail War, the fossilized shell of the first snake in the world to shed its skin. It is a relic directly related to King Gilgamesh. In an attempt to overcome death, Gilgamesh once sought out an herb of immortality from the underworld. Upon obtaining it, he let his guard down while resting at a nearby spring, during which a snake slithered by and devoured his herb, shedding its skin to show that the herb was a youth potion rather than a means of avoiding death altogether. Even if Rin wanted to use this catalyst, it would not have worked because Gilgamesh remained alive past the Fourth Grail War. Of course, Gilgamesh searched for immortality after his dearest friend Enkidu was taken from him. Almost equally famous, Enkidu can also be summoned as a servant under the right circumstances. A mage hoping to fight in a Grail War created a familiar, a wolf creature. This wolf was meant to be used as a catalyst for the mage to summon his servant, but as fate would have it, the wolf wound up inheriting his command spells. Outraged, the mage began to abuse and torture his own creation, and when it screamed out hoping to survive, Enkidu responded to its call. I admit this is very unconventional, the product of trying to make one's catalyst a living being with a will of its own. It goes against the very point of having a catalyst, which is to lure in a specific servant from the throne. A more straightforward example can be seen when summoning Frankenstein's monster for the Great Grail War in Trifas. The Yggdrasilania clan targeted her using the original blueprints Dr. Frankenstein made to build her. After tens of thousands of aborted children were cast away in London's Whitechapel district, they formed a human shape that went on to murder prostitutes in a futile effort to return to the womb. This killer, Jack the Ripper, left behind her 6 knives, which eventually found their way to the mage Hyoma Sagara. Similar to Enkidu, Jack did not respond to Hyoma's call, but rather the cry of his captive Reika. Nefertari was the first and most adored queen of Pharaoh Ozymandias in Egypt. He believed her to be an incarnation of the goddess Hathor, and he cherished her above all his other queens. Her golden necklace survives into the modern era, where it can be used to summon Ozymandias as a servant. Perhaps, if Nefertari were famous enough to be a hero in her own right, the necklace would summon her. It is a fascinating idea. After all, there are cases like the Round Table and Argo, which can be used to summon one of several different candidates. Such is the case for the God-felling crossbow, a weapon used by Qin Shi Huang that survived long after his demise. Rather than summoning its associated Chinese emperor, it actually became the catalyst to the spirit Jiao, who was once the bow's victim. This bears the same logic as trying to summon a hero like Achilles, using the arrow that struck his tendon. Siegfried's most famous anecdote comes from him slaying the dragon Fafnir. The dragon's blood poured out, washing over and covering Siegfried's body, with the exception of a linden leaf that stuck to his back. It left behind a spot on Siegfried that would become his weak point. The leaf, having been soaked in dragon's blood, was preserved over the years before finding its way to a mage family. It would later be used to bring back Siegfried from his mortal coil. One of the most dangerous catalysts comes from King Solomon. According to legend, he was bestowed by God a set of 10 rings, granting him vast wisdom. During his life, Solomon would wind up returning 9 of these rings back to God. The 10th ring, however, remained into the modern era, where it was obtained by Marisbury Animisphere. The absence of this final ring is one way to distinguish the real Solomon from his imitation put on by his demon god familiars. No other servant was able to leave behind such a threat to the human order. Thus, we can be thankful that Marisbury used the 10th ring to summon the real Solomon, who went on to resolve the conflict. In summation, catalysts are relics of the past that, even if damaged, can be acquired in the modern era by mages. Because they are remnants of legend, they are used to summon the heroic spirits associated with them. While a great many catalysts have already been gathered by the Mages Association, there are clearly others that find their way to unaffiliated mages. If a master is compatible with a given servant, they may not need a catalyst, but there are also cases where a summoned servant can find use for their own catalyst. For example, Artoria becomes far more powerful when reunited with Avalon. In that regard, catalysts are worth preserving even without using them to summon servants. Hopefully, this has been a nice diversion from the norm. For our next lesson, I wish to return to basics by speaking of the 3 essential components that comprise all living beings. That is, the mind, body, and soul, as well as their relevance to the cyber frames utilized by the Moon Cell. Thanks for watching!
If you enjoy this channel, help us grow by liking, commenting, sharing the video, subscribing to Otaku Daikun, and
most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all of our anime discussion, lore, or Let's Play content.
You can support us directly through Patreon, Subscribestar, or our YouTube membership, all of which come with benefits like exclusive vids and early access.
As always, celebrate your fandom! I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters. VideoGamer75, Elise Trash Fuskinko, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Samuel Gersten, The Nonchalant Ostrich, Otaku Mom, Jens Bauman, Mystic Samurai 1983, Lord Ormagoden, Free Brick, Olympian Doll, RNGer Shuffles 1498, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Link Pendrago, King Kobo, Observer Bellis, Flash Daniel, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Andre Foster, Jared Krause, Game King, Caitlin P., Vladimirovna, Jonathan Padua, The Taz 96, Maxwell's Demon, Kengo X77, Alester Bernadotte, SF Giants fan Mike, and Akakaze Yume. Thank you all so much.